Hello, this is Stephen Cook with Cook Saw Manufacturing. Mid-January of 2018, we're trying to get started off making our videos on a regular basis and keeping new videos out there to you. Been a cold week last week, so we kind of waited for a little bit warmer weather. Beautiful, almost spring weather today, up to near 70 degrees. So it's turning cold again next week. But I wanted to talk to you today about questions that we get sometimes, but this would be about roller guide maintenance. Things that you need to do with your roller guides to make sure that your blade is cutting the best that it could. This is a real simple thing to do, but sometimes we find that people either don't understand about it or just don't take that little bit of time. I know it's hard to take that 1 or 2 or 5 minutes. Sometimes we have so many things going in this busy world. But roller guides are a critical piece of equipment to keep your bandsaw blade running properly. We're at one of our SW super wide mills that we've been building in the last year or two. And just to show you these are the same roller guides on all of our machines. One of the first things you want to do is fill this roller guide and spin it and see if it's spinning good, not hanging up or not any play. That roller guide should be tight so that it doesn't give up or down. Obviously, if there's any movement, if the bearing's catching, if they're not spinning regular, or any movement, particularly any movement, if there's any movement or flat spots on it when you roll that, see if there's a flat spot. It is very amazing that if that thing stops for 10 seconds, you will have a flat spot on this super hard piece of material that we make. We have it specially hardened. And then I was talking about the movement. If there's even 10, 20 thousandths movement, wiggle, you're starting to get some wear in those bearings. They're fixing to go to 1/8 of an inch. But if it does that, you're going to get movement in the blade. You can't hold it. And that guide or guide it. They're not totally holders, but to some degree they're holding this blade so that it saws straight away. You want to look at that. We put greasable roller guides on our mills. We sell them, and what we like to do is to grease these twice a day. I'd like to grease it really at the end of the day when I quit, and then at lunch, maybe every 4 hours, just a shot or two. The grease will come out here, come out the back sometimes, and it does give grease. It's just a shot or two. The reason we do that, and what we have found we like to do, is because we're pushing fresh grease in. We're running sometimes diesel fuel drip. We like to wiper ourselves so that we don't drip so much and blow so much around. Keep that to a minimum, but water of a type with dishwashing liquid, and that will tend to, as well as sap and juices that come out of the acidic juices that come out of the wood, will slowly migrate into these roller guides. Which, if it's acidic, it'll make those balls fit, and that's why your ball bearings go out sometimes, not more from that than from wear. So if we put grease in it, end of the day, not the beginning of the day, the end of the day when we get done, just shoot a couple shots in if you can keep one around handy. That pushes those impurities out that have seeped in, and we're not talking about they're pouring in, just a seep, and it may be from day to day. There are roller guides out there, and we sell them, that have a sealed bearing, and some people like those. You may not have the greasable. The seal bearing is pretty good, and in some cases it does very well. But in some cases, according to how much grease they put in it from the beginning, according to how good the seal is, and if it's shielded, if it's a shielded bearing, it's a metal plate around there, those sawdust will seep in them, get into them. Can't even figure out how it does it, but it does. A sealed bearing, rubber seal, does pretty good, but what we had found over the long term is just grease this thing a couple times and go with it. And that gives you good life. Again, if you get that movement, you got problems. Another thing, really just look at it. I mentioned flatness. One thing you want to look at, but also look at wear. It's not going to wear back here at the back very much, or at least it won't be real noticeable, but you'll start seeing wear, and that's why we have a wider flange out here on the front, and you'll start seeing wear there and back on this first ring on these flanges. These little rings are there to let the sawdust come on through, but if you see that wear you'll pretty well not notice it. But if you start getting that taper, again, you can hardly control that. To begin with, you have your adjustment, and you do need to adjust these and check with our blade alignment tool how to make sure that it's flat. You can also lay you a straight edge, just a little long maybe, it's just a piece of straight metal I've got, and make sure if I touch it and I'm touching these first two grooves that I'm not getting a big taper out there. If you have a dial caliper, you can measure it. And if you start getting 30 thousandths taper, you're getting toward the end, you need to change those roller guides. If you have any movement in here, you need to change the bearings at least if your roller guides are not bad. If you've been running those for 6 months or so, you probably won't, and you're running on a regular basis, I should say, all of these things, there's a balance in everything we tell y'all, because some people just run on the weekend, some people run every month or two, some people running 8 hours a day. All of those things come into play. Do those checks, and if you're only running on the weekends, man, it may be 2-3 years before you have to change them. If you're running every day, 3 months, 6 months, if you're on production, keeping these new and fresh is cheap money spent to know that you're getting straight cuts in boards that are sometimes worth $20, $30, $40, $50 instead of getting a bad cut. Several other things we've talked about before, but maintaining those roller guides, very critical. So thank you for looking and keep watching. We'll have more videos.